Hello friends, Tom Downey here for NFL Daily, presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Let's take a look at some winners and losers from the Senior Bowl. We'll start things off with the winners on the positive side, so you guys can't yell at me until later on in the show. We'll start off with the wide receivers, who in general really impressed me this year. And we lead with Deebo Samuel, the receiver from South Carolina. He was my best receiver going into the Senior Bowl among guys playing there. Obviously, there are some underclassmen who are really, really good, or I should say early entries who are incredible. He can play inside, outside, and he consistently beat a rather disappointing crop of defensive backs at the Senior Bowl. I expect him to at least be a top 50 pick this year. He's one of like 8 or 9 guys that I think you can argue could be that late first round range, maybe even that early second round range. It's a pretty strong class of players there overall. So Deebo Samuel checks in as a Senior Bowl winner for me. That one was a no-brainer. Some more receivers here that I want to break down. Terry McLaurin, the other Ohio State receiver in this year's draft class. Paris Campbell, of course, gets much of the hype. And McLaurin didn't get the ball as frequently, but I think he's going to have a very successful NFL career. He was a guy I expected was going to be a bit of a surprising early round pick because he's so valuable on special teams. Maybe he'll just be an early round pick overall for his wide receiver ability. Incredibly fast, could be a slot receiver as well at the next level for Ohio State. Was very impressed by what he did, got open. Just had a very steady week overall. Paris Campbell, I think, will still be drafted before McLaurin, but he's going to go earlier than you might have otherwise thought based on his numbers at Ohio State. Today's show was brought to you by BetDSI. It's the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code LIVE120 when you sign up and deposit for a 120% deposit bonus. So you put down $50, they're going to give you $60 for free. Put down $100, and they'll give you $120. And if you use Bitcoin, that deposit bonus becomes 150%. Now, we know not everyone is super familiar with Bitcoin, so if you have questions or need help, just DM us on Twitter @ChatSports. We'll help you guys out and get you that extra bonus money on BetDSI. One last receiver I want to mention who might have been just the biggest winner of all was Penny Hart, a name that wasn't really on my radar. I don't think was on many radars entering this early portion of the pre-draft process, but he was absolutely incredible. And outside of the game itself, Penny Hart outshined Andy Isabella. Now, I'll make note here that we're also including the practice stuff because practices for the Senior Bowl are just as important, if not more so, than the game itself. But Penny Hart, who didn't have the best production this year, I think frankly was better in 2017, looked the part of that undersized but super fast slot receiver. I was very impressed by Penny Hart. Part of a very good wide receiver core at this year's Senior Bowl. Other guys that we didn't mention, but I was impressed by overall. Keelan Doss, who just missed out. Andy Isabella is one of my guys. Anthony Johnson, the wide receiver from Buffalo. Jacoby Myers, a big slot guy. And Hunter Renfrow as well. Now, you guys have, if you've watched the show before, know that I'm a big Andy Isabella fan. So pick a slot receiver for me. Do you want A for Andy Isabella or P for Penny Hart? I'll preface it by saying there's no wrong answer. I'm still going to go with Isabella. There's been a little bit of hate I've noticed from him, which I almost wonder if it's just people trying to be contrarian there. I like Isabella. I know he's a bit of a body catcher. He is going to be a fantastic slot receiver in the NFL, and the dude can fly as well. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball then. Kalen Sanders, who maybe you guys know him as the dude who does backflips or the dude that missed his daughter's birth to attend the Senior Bowl. Well, that gets the buzz, obviously, but he's also a really good football player, an impressive athlete for his size, which makes sense since he can do backflips. Checked in just under 6'1", 6 foot 5/8 inches there, 320 pounds, but he can also pressure and disrupt the passer. Maybe you saw the sack he had in the Senior Bowl game itself. He's going to be a good player. I think a top 100 pick. If you need if you're a team that runs a 4-3 scheme and you need a one technique type that can also pressure the passer, Sanders is your guy. Think of him as an Antoine Woods type for those of you who follow the Dallas Cowboys out there. Now, of course, Sanders stuck with the Senior Bowl, missed the birth of his child, then did fly back up to at least meet her. So pick 1 to attend if you're an NFL player or prospective NFL player. Type 1 if you're going to go to the Senior Bowl and not fly home to be there for the birth of your child. Or 2 if you're going to say, sorry, job interview, I'm going to go be there for the birth of my child. Let me know in the comments section. If it's me, I'm sorry, Senior Bowl, I'm going to go to the birth of my kid. But I'm sure the NFL absolutely ate that up. Another defensive winner here I want to make note of, Charles Omenihu, who I like quite a bit, and much of the things we saw in advance. Super long arms, 36.5 inches, among the largest arms for any defensive lineman since we started tracking those types of measurements going back this decade. It's pretty impressive there for Omenihu. Looked great at the weigh-in, obviously, which does matter for NFL teams. We've seen that time and time again. Was disruptive in practice and had a good game as well. Sack, tackle for loss, looked very good. Very much what we saw on tape. Lanky guy, almost 6'6", 274 pounds. I think that he could be a defensive tackle at the next level. Some will put him at edge rusher. I think, though, he could play defensive end or defensive tackle either way. I think Omenihu is going to be a round 2 pick. If he lasts till 60s or 50s, I'd actually be a little bit surprised given what we saw on tape and how good he's looked for much of this pre-draft process. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you have not already. If you're watching on Facebook, the link is right there, youtube.com/chatsportstv. If you're watching on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button. We'll have all kinds of NFL draft content for you guys. Mock drafts, player rankings, winners, losers from the Combine, Senior Bowl, rumors, everything you could possibly want. So subscribe right now, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We'll stick in the trenches here. How about Dalton Risner, the Kansas State offensive lineman, was lined up almost exclusively at right tackle. There'd been some buzz he might play some guard. I don't like how the NFL likes to do this, by the way. They want to take these players and say, well, your arms aren't 35, 34 inches, so we're going to make you go play guard. Put Dalton Risner at right tackle. He's a plug-and-play guy. I don't know if he ends up going round 1, but I think maybe like a Cody Whitehair, if you want to stick with the Kansas State comparison. Early draft pick, plug-and-play starter. He truly can play, I think, every spot on the offensive line. I'm happy to take him in that 25, 35, 45 range at worst and say, you know what, boom. We now have our franchise right tackle, which more and more is important given who lines up against those right tackles in today's pass-happy NFL. One more offensive lineman I want to mention here from USC, Chuma Edoga, who he totally changed the narrative around his stock. First off, he was named the overall player of the week by the Senior Bowl themselves, which doesn't necessarily make you the biggest winner, but that's what the Senior Bowl thought. Played a lot of right tackle at USC, kicked over to left tackle, and actually looked really good, which was a bit of a surprise to me because I know there was some buzz that in the tape I didn't think was that great at right tackle. I'm going to have to go back and watch some more. But his narrative has gone from, well, maybe at an under 6'4" guy, he needs to play guard. But he was so effective at left tackle in the Senior Bowl, I think the discussion now becomes maybe he just stays at tackle. Either way, a big boost to his stock there. That's a big bump there. I also make note of some other offensive linemen from the Senior Bowl because there were a lot of guys I thought fared quite well. Garrett Bradbury, I think, will be the top center off the board. Nate Davis could be a developmental type guy. Same with Titus Howard at Alabama State. Andre Dillard, I almost put on here, but we stuck with 10 guys. He's deserving, though, as well. And Chris Lindstrom, I think Dillard and Lindstrom, both guys you'll see go off the board, if not round 1, which I think is where Dillard goes now, early in round 2. Let's get to our first quarterback and our only quarterback winner, quite frankly. That is Drew Lock, and he left as the top senior quarterback this year, which I already had them there, but other people like Daniel Jones, who we'll get to later on. He wasn't flawless by any means. There's still footwork issues. There's still up and downs, and he definitely did not thrive in the way a Baker Mayfield, a Carson Wentz has in the past and vaults himself into a secure top 5 pick. But I do think he continues to trend towards being a top 10 pick this year. He wasn't flawless. He just outplayed the rest of the quarterbacks who, frankly, I don't think fared all that well. So I think Drew Lock goes in the top 10. I think he'll end up with a team like the Denver Broncos. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I think you'll see Drew Lock end up as a top 10 selection this year. Denver needs a quarterback. I think they like Drew Lock. So let me know what you guys think in there. What team will draft Drew Lock? Denver's my pick right now. I don't think that's going to change too much, and I think everyone else will kind of catch up on that pick in terms of the mock drafts. Move now back to defense, Montez Sweat. And I will preface this by saying I like Montez Sweat. He drew a lot of buzz at the Senior Bowl. He is going to be a first-round pick. He won with strength and length and some good quick initial bursts, as he did at Mississippi State, put up great numbers there. But I've seen all of a sudden top 10 buzz around Montez Sweat. And that's kind of interesting to me because Montez Sweat won at the Senior Bowl in the same way he did at Mississippi State. He didn't actually answer the questions about his cornering, about his bendability, about his true top-end speed, which is fine. I still love Montez Sweat as a prospect. You don't get 12 sacks in the SEC by being bad as far as I'm concerned. So I think he's going to be a top 20 pick. But it's kind of weird to me. I feel like we're counting his traits twice here. We're saying, oh, we know he's good at this. We know he's a good strength and length guy because he is. He's going to be that type of player in the NFL. but it's weird for me to see, oh, he's a winner because he won the same way he won at Mississippi State. I like him again. I'm not knocking Montez Sweat. He's worthy of a winner here, but there are still concerns about some of that quickness and agility. All the videos you saw on Twitter were of him just overpowering guys. Didn't actually answer his questions about his flaws. Either way, I think he's going to be a productive pass rusher if he goes in that top 20, top 25 range. Which reminds me, where will Montez Sweat be drafted? Let me know in the comments section. I think Carolina could make a lot of sense to him. A lot of teams in that 16, 15 to 25, 30 range are going to need pass rushers this year. He'll end up going in round 1. One last defensive winner, then we'll recap for those of you just joining us. That's Terrell Hanks, and he impressed at the weigh-in. He's one of those dudes that there just isn't any body fat on him. He's absolutely jacked, and NFL teams do care about that. He was fast and effective in practices in the game, too. He could have a Darius Leonard-like. I don't want to say he's going to go number 35 overall and be all of a sudden a Pro Bowl linebacker or all-pro linebacker because he was so great in year 1. But he could have that type of impact, similar body sizes there. As the NFL trends more and more to speed, especially at linebacker, Hanks fits that role. It's, I think, a rather down linebacker class. I would not be surprised if Hanks is one of the first 5 linebackers off the board this year. All right, let's recap my Senior Bowl winners. A lot of receivers: Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Penny Hart, Kalen Saunders, Charles Omenihu. I like Omenihu quite a bit as well. And then some other guys: Dalton Reisner, Drew Lock, Montez Sweat, Chuma Edoga, and Terrell Hanks. So let me know, folks, if you guys paid attention this week, who was your biggest Senior Bowl winner? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. For me, it's the guy that really wasn't on my radar and now definitely is. It is Penny Hart, without a doubt. And go DM me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Feel free to ask about any prospects you guys have. I know some of you already have. Even some guys I've never heard of before you guys have mentioned to me, some small school guys. So feel free to DM me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. Today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Get in while you still can for the NFL. Super Bowl coming up here. And oh, by the way, all kinds of prop bets available on BetDSI. Go sign up, chatsports.com/bet takes you right to the site, and use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. So you put down $50, they're going to give you $60 for free. Put down $100, and they're going to give you $120. And if you use Bitcoin, that bonus becomes a 150% deposit bonus. So $30 more if you put down $100 and use Bitcoin. We know not everyone is super familiar with Bitcoin, so DM us on Twitter at ChatSports. We'll help you guys out and get you that extra bonus money to bet with. We did 10 winners. I'll only do 5 losers here, and apologies in advance to the fans of these particular college teams. Welcome to the NFL draft. Not everyone's a first-round pick. First loser, Trace McSorley. He's just not it, guys. Struggle with strength or arm strength and accuracy throughout the practices and throughout the game itself. He was a great college quarterback. He's not an NFL starter. His ceiling, I think, at the most is as an NFL backup. Now, I think he'll hang around the NFL for several years, but I don't ever see him being the guy. He's not going to be a franchise quarterback. His numbers dipped, by the way, after he lost Saquon Barkley, after he lost Deshaun Hamilton, and after he lost Mike Gesicki, 3 early-round picks. Kind of makes sense. He's just not going to be the guy for the NFL team. So where would you draft Trace McSorley? I am fine taking him round 6, round 7, making him a priority undrafted free agent, and maybe groom him into a backup, but he's not going to be the long-term answer for any NFL team. He's just not a good enough prospect. Next up, a potentially controversial one, Daniel Jones of Duke. Now, I know what you're thinking. Tom, he won Senior Bowl game MVP. What are you talking about? The box score stats don't match his play. I know he fared well, 8-11, 115, and 2 TDs, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. A lot of these were the same things we've seen from Daniel Jones on tape at Duke. Rollouts, quick passes, scheme throws. He also had a surefire interception dropped by Juan Thornhill, so it really should have been more like 8 of 10 for less yards, a TD, and an interception. And the big thing, he was not good at practice. Daniel Jones had a rough week of practice at the Senior Bowl. Interceptions, bad mistakes, and his arm strength continues to be what I saw on tape at Duke. It's just not that good. It's a middling arm. It's just not strong enough. Good zip over the middle. Daniel Jones, to me, I just don't think he's going to be a good franchise quarterback. If you draft him, I don't think you made a good decision. Now, the other Senior Bowl quarterbacks we haven't really discussed so far. Ryan Finley, I don't love him. Tyree Jackson is a raw developmental type guy. Gardner Minshew strikes me as a backup. Jarrett Stidham also had a good week of practice, relatively speaking, but I've seen him on tape at Auburn. I am not interested in Jarrett Stidham. And then Will Grier, who I think will continue to be the most divisive quarterback prospect. There is the cult of Grier that exists out there, and I understand why. The arm strength flashed at times, but I think he was trying to put more juice on it, and it cost him with accuracy because that wasn't a great strength of his during the Senior Bowl practices. Overall, I continue to be underwhelmed by this entire quarterback group in the 2019 NFL Draft. But back to Jones. Is he a future franchise quarterback? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I am typing in N for no. I finished my film study of him. I am very much disappointed. I don't think he's the answer for any NFL team, beyond maybe a backup and a guy that can start a couple of handful games for you, but he just doesn't have enough deep ball stuff. He's just too much of a check down quarterback. I called the Duke offense the Dink and Daniel offense because that's all they did. They were not shots downfield. It was a quick strike passing attack. It was more of a college offense than any other quarterback I think I'll study this year. All right, some more losers, as I apologize to Duke fans for my hate of Daniel Jones. Jalen Smith, who, as I was told, why was he there? Highlighted by drop, separation issues, struggled badly at the Senior Bowl itself, was listed at 6'4" by Louisville. Well, he's actually 6'2", as it turns out, because never trust program weight or height. I was very much disappointed by Smith. Not that I expected much, but I don't really see how you could like Smith. In a great receiving group at the Senior Bowl, Smith was a pretty massive disappointment. Next up on the losers list, Caleb Wilson, who I'm going to put an asterisk by this one because he only had the one Senior Bowl practice, and he looked slow and sluggish and had some drops. He only had the one day of practice, had a pretty tough day, but he was put in a tough situation. He took a red-eye flight the night before to get there from California. He might have just been tired and exhausted from that last-second addition to the Senior Bowl roster, so I'll give him a bit of an asterisk there, but in a pretty solid tight end class, Wilson didn't really help himself, although to be fair, almost all the tight ends this year that are really good are early entries, not the senior types. Another loser, Chris Boyd of Texas. I had some hope maybe he could be kind of your long, 6-foot lanky guy. Did not measure in all that well. And then in the game itself, after a rough week of practice, amid struggles, getting too aggressive in press, and just not being fast to recover, he was flagged 3 times in the Senior Bowl game. And I know the Senior Bowl doesn't mean everything, and it's not the most important. Heck, I think the practices are actually more important than the game itself. But Boyd did not have a very good showing. All right, one last bonus loser, which doesn't really count, but I had to make note of it. Isaiah Buggs, who was listed by Alabama at 6'5", 283. Checks in at the Senior Bowl, 6'2" 5/8" and 295 pounds. So one of two things happened here. Either A, Alabama just can't measure dudes, and there's a joke there about Alabama in general, or they lied and added an extra 2 inches onto Isaiah Buggs' frame. Or he shrunk, which doesn't make any sense at all. So here's what happened. This is why you don't trust program weights and heights. Alabama jacked it up for Buggs. He's not 6'5", he's more like 6'3". That's not the biggest thing in the world, but it is worth noting. All right, to recap those Senior Bowl losers, Trace McSorley, Daniel Jones, who I'm out on as a prospect and a franchise quarterback, Jalen Smith, Caleb Wilson, Chris Boyd, and of course, program weights and heights. All right, folks, subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We will have all kinds of NFL draft coverage, all up to the actual draft. We will have a live show as well. So subscribe now, youtube.com/chatsportstv if you're watching on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, just hit that button right now.